Memory lane time. I take you down the streets I grew up on. I moved away from 35 years ago. So I'm starting at Hayden Buchanan, walking down the hill. I'm going to show you this house across the street. That's where Horace Jack Tolson lived. And he was my brother's piano teacher, my sister's vocal teacher, and my vocal teacher. Of course, I never practiced enough, so he would get all frustrated and mad and lecture me. And but I did. I made some progress with him. You know, I was about 10, 11. I was a soprano, and coming down the hill right here, this is where I grew up at. This was all UC Extension. Now all that housing is like some kind of affordable housing. This was a convent, and last thing I knew it was a rehab. It was a youth Waldenhouse facility. And back when I was heavy into AA, I brought a meeting in there one time, and the byword in there was focus up, focus up. But it looks like they could focus up and get a paint job. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, this was like a convent with like strange nuns that had a giant German Shepherd. And this apartment building right here was an empty lot until I was about 17 or 18. It was an empty lot, and then they built this building here. And but I used to play in that empty lot. You know, there was like a wall right here, and then when you came around the corner, there was like about a 4 or 5 foot high wall, and there was a fence. And I remember the sun used to like come through the fence and hit a pattern on the sidewalk right here. And this is an interesting old house. It's pretty badass. This is the block I grew up on. But this house right here has like a detached, well, you'd call it a garage now, but it's got that hook for hoisting freight or whatever. So it was like, at one time it was probably like a livery. And this is Laguna Street. Of course, when I was coming up, the bus used to come down this block. It would turn off at Haight, and Haight turned one way coming up the hill. And there were 2 stops. There was a stop right there, and there was a stop at the other end of the block. There was 2 stops. And this amazing Victorian, people used to always stop and take pictures of it. And there was a family that lived in there, fireman, his 2 sons and daughter, and that white off-white apartment building, that's where I grew up. That window right there was my room, and that was the living room, and later on that was my mom's room, but that was my room when I was a kid, and that was the living room, and my brother's room too for a while. And this flat has a big railroad hallway that goes around the back, and has a big bedroom in the back too. So basically I think it was like a 2 or 3 bedroom, but it had like a quote unquote dining room. But we converted it all into this was my front stoop when I was a kid. When I was a kid, there was no gate right here, and I used to hang out on this front stoop, and I would take a baseball or a tennis ball and throw it against this stairway, and then I had a little game worked out where if it hit a certain place, then it was baseball rules. I would basically play baseball by myself off the front stoop, and if it went into the street, then it was a home run. And of course, here's the famous Zen Center, and that was the whole reason my mom moved out here, or part of the reason, in '68, was to study the Suzuki Roshi, the Japanese Zen master. When she first moved out, I think the Zen Center was still up on Bush Street, and then they got this place. And And this spot around the corner is where my friend used to live. And that's the back of the apartment. So that was my mom's room. And then I could see across. And when I first moved in, I saw that there was another little kid. He was playing in his room, so I came around the corner and knocked on the door. Be friends. We started hanging out. We were best friends for like 5 years. And so a lot of these buildings were owned by Zen Center. And I guess Suzuki Roshi thought that, it'd be a good idea to build a community of, and places for all those students and priests and people, community to live. Now this building on the corner right here, I remember probably around 1980 or so, this building right here sold for $250,000. And my mom couldn't believe it, that a building actually sold for $250,000. And of course, over here, we got, I don't know what this is now. It doesn't look like much. I guess it's been a salon and stuff. It was like a non-profit when I was a kid. It was called the Neighborhood Foundation. And then, so in this apartment across the street right here, on the upper floor, in that flat, that's where Peter Coyote used to live. And his daughter Ariel and his wife at the time, Marilyn. And I remember when he got his big break and got his part in. So that was around 82, I guess. And I guess he made a bunch of money on that one and moved over to Mill Valley. And but I used to see him. He had a little green BMW 2002, and I used to sometimes I'd come out and help him wash his car and hang out with him, or he'd walk me down. There was a Kragen at the bottom of the hill down here at Goff and Laguna, and I go down to the parts store with him and get parts and stand around while he fixed his car and stuff. And of course, this is the famous mini park. And under that paint job right there is a really cool mural that has been destroyed. But that was, I guess the Zen Center owned it, and they decided they didn't like the mural anymore, and they painted over it, and it's probably been painted over a couple times since then. But this park has been definitely redesigned. It was a lot more concrete when I was a kid. But yeah, I grew up hanging out in here. There was an old black couple that used to stick their head out and scream at people when they were making too much noise, or they were here at night or something like that. And it's nice to see people enjoying the park, though. And it's nice to see their floral design, their aloe plants, and their beautiful trees. It's like a fig tree or something. I don't know. I don't know anything. I'm no botanist, but I like that bottlebrush tree right there. And it must be a very happy place for birds. It's a happy place for birds. And that's Rose Alley right there. So this is it. This is Page Laguna Mini Park, aka Diane di Prima Park. So I'm back.